Hi, this is Jen Tinline from stampwithjen.com, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make this pretty Christmas card. Stamp sets you need for this card are Country Home, Love What You Do, and probably my favorite stamp set in the book, Peaceful Noel. Inks you need are Soft Suede, Mossy Meadow, Old Olive, Memento Black, and Versamark. All of the cardstock and papers that I'm showing you are all listed in a PDF attached to this video, so just click in the comments below this video and you can get a downloadable PDF that has all of the supplies that I'm using in it listed for you with the item numbers and everything. The first thing I'm going to do is stamp this milk crate image in Memento Black down towards the bottom of the Whisper White piece. And press firmly, and then I'm going to grab some post-it notes, making sure that the sticky side is down, and I'm going to stamp that image so that it's mostly falling on this sticky side. I'm going to grab a couple post-it notes, 2 or 3, and I'm going to cut out this image with my scissors. Now it really is not as big a deal as it sounds. You just sort of twist the paper and cut around, and what you're doing here is you're making a mask, and this allows you to put stuff in the jar without it stamping over top of the jar. So that's how I did that trick. I'm just going to speed up the cutting here, and then what I do is I'm going to peel off one of these masks, and I'll save the other ones. I'll put them in the stamp case so I can use them again another time. So I'm just going to make sure that's on there firmly, and now I'm ready to stamp. So I'm going to start with Soft Suede, and these are the new ink pads, and you open them just like a makeup compact. So you just basically grab the 2 sides and pull apart like that. The older ink pads, you still have to do the little flip and twist thing. So the ink pads I have here are Soft Suede, Mossy Meadow, and Old Olive. So I'm going to start by stamping this branch piece from the set, and I'm going to stamp it several times in several different positions, and I created one piece that was a bit longer. I'm going to come in with this little branch piece and Mossy Meadow ink. This is actually my favorite part of the stamp set. This is the Peaceful Noel stamp set. And you can make those branches longer just like I did the sort of the fir branches longer, just like I did the branches longer, by just stamping them twice. I'm also gonna just in a little bit stamp some off, so you can have some that looks like you're kind of in behind or sort of further back in the bouquet. So you can make this whatever you want, and you can see how easy it is to make it look fabulous. So next I'm going to go with the Old Olive, and I'm going to go with this rather filled in image just to fill in this bouquet. And again, I'm going to stamp some off, so again it just helps fill in the background and look like some of the things are further back in this bouquet. And you know, there's no limit to what you could do here, what colors you could use, as long as you're kind of using greenery. I just picture something that might be on my front porch. I just felt like it needed a little bit more of the pine branches coming out of the side. And then the final step is I'm adding this piece from the other set, and it's just for the berries. And again, I'm stamping right over top of the mask because you're not going to see that. See when you pull it off. Now I have a little bit of a shadow, a white line there, so it means the post-it note was probably just a bit high, but I can fill that in when I'm doing my coloring. So now I'm going to color this milk jug with my Blends alcohol markers. I love coloring with them, first of all because they're so nice and smooth, but also because you can blend colors really nicely. So I'm working with the Crumb Cake and Soft Suede markers, and I'm just sort of laying down a base with the light Crumb Cake marker. Now I'm no expert at this. I have done a couple videos showing how I've blended, so I'm sort of learning as I go along, and I find that adding the ink slowly and being able to blend them is what works best. Then I'm doing the same thing again with the light Soft Suede, and I try to actually blend it a little bit with my light Crumb Cake marker, but I realize it's not really blending that well because the colors are too different. So I'm going back in with the darker Crumb Cake marker to blend that. It's all a bit of a trial and error, just trying to get it to work. Sometimes I use the bullet tip and do little wee circles. Sometimes I use the brush tip if I want to cover more surface area quickly. And now that I've got the darker, I can go back in and blend a little bit more. So you can see how the color is kind of fading from the edges to the middle, which is what I want. And here I am using the little circles and using the bullet tip. It's just a little bit easier to blend all that. So I'm just using the lighter crumb cake to lightly fill in the edges, and then I'm grabbing the darker soft suede and just highlighting the very outside edges of the jar to make it look really dark. And then I'm going to just do the same thing on the bottom, and then the same thing for the red. So I'm just going to speed it up. For the red in the middle, I'm going to be using the Real Red, light and dark, and Cherry Cobbler, light and dark. And I'm going to use the same process. I'm going to lay down the lighter color first and then build up with the darker color and sort of fade towards the middle. So I'm going to speed up the video while I'm doing this, and you can see what I've done. So I'm finished there, and you can see that I added again just a little bit darker on the very edges to make it really look like a curved shape. I've got a little boo-boo here on the side, so I'm going to use the color lifter, and you can use that to lighten colors up but also to erase colors. So I'm just erasing that little bit of red boo-boo on the side there. So I'm just taking my lighter soft suede and adding a little more depth and dimension to the handles, and then I've got to do that rim, and so it's going to be the darkest part of it all, but still using that process of light and dark fading. And I'm taking my dark Real Red here, and I'm just coloring in all of those berries. Some of them I'm going to cover up with rhinestones in a minute, but the ones that I don't, I want them to still look red. So now I'm going to emboss the saying, and first of all I did wipe it with an embossing buddy, but I accidentally clipped that part of the video out. So I stamped it with a Versamark ink, and I'm just using something to capture the powder here. So this is a coffee filter, and you're going to shake off and tap off any of the extra, and if you had any extra stray bits, you use a brush or something, but usually using the embossing buddy does the job. And then you can just filter that powder back in, and away you go. So then I'm going to heat it with the heat tool, and what I like to do with the tool first is to just let it warm up. I usually sort of count to 10 and let it warm up a little bit, and then I find the embossing just goes much faster. And when you're embossing with vellum, you want to be careful that you're not overheating it and or melting or warping that paper. There is a setting on this gun that is like labeled number 1 that is a little bit lower heat, which is nicer for that. Now I realize in a little bit that I emboss with gold embossing powder, and I meant to do copper, so I will switch that out in a bit. Next, you want to wrap that vellum around the piece wherever you want that to sit. I want to make it sit a little bit higher so I can see some of the pretty red coloring I've done. And then you'll trim the vellum. Now obviously I just used a piece of scrap here, so it was super long and I didn't need it to be that long, so you could start with a smaller piece. And then just use your snail adhesive to attach that vellum to the back of this piece. It's worth noting here too that the blends, they really show through the paper, so when you're coloring with blends you want to make sure that you're coloring on a protected surface. So next I'm going to attach this piece just with my snail adhesive to the crumb cake mat, and then I'm going to attach it to the front of my card. I've already attached the plaid paper to the front of the card. So next I'm going to take this copper thread and I'm going to wrap a bunch around my fingers, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times, and cut it, and then I'm going to pull it off and kind of almost twist it into a figure 8, and then I'm going to attach it to the back of the card, and I'm just going to hold it in place with a dimensional or 2. And so it's just kind of peeking out those 2 corners. I realized after that on my original sample I'd done the opposite corner, but on this one I did this corner and it works fine. It's just to give a little hint of that copper look going through. So I'm going to add a bunch of dimensionals. Make sure you put some in the middle so it doesn't sag, and then I'm going to peel off the backings, and I'm going to fiddle a little bit with the thread just to get it so that it doesn't look so put there in place. I'm going to move some of it around and mess around with it, so I'm going to just speed that part up. So once you've fiddled around with it and moved the strings wherever you want them to peek out of, then you're going to attach that to your front of your card. And next I'm going to grab these lovely red rhinestones, and you can see how many come in a package. I'm just going to use my paper piecing tool here to grab them and stick them on. So I don't want to do every single berry that's on there, but just a few that might be more forward facing that would catch the light, and just sort of finish off this card. I think this just adds a nice little sparkle to the front finish of the card. So there's my two versions. You can see they both look a little bit different, but they both look lovely. So thank you very much for watching, and make sure to check back to stampwithjen2ns.com often for other tips, tricks, and ideas.